Good evening. Firstly, we begin tonight with the death of South Australian football legend Russell Ebert. The Port Adelaide great passed away peacefully this afternoon following a long battle with leukaemia.
Ebert was a champion in every sense, a four-time Magarey medalist with 3 premierships, but he was also revered for his work off the field, working tirelessly for charities for decades. The humble and much-loved 72-year-old will forever remain an inspiration to all South Australians.
Great catch, Russell Ebert. Magnificently done, Mark Russell Ebert.
Russell Frank Ebert was a quiet teenager from the Riverland in 1968 and was headed for the big smoke.
Here's the lead from Ebert. Has he got it? He has. Great mark.
3 years later, he was wearing a Magarey medal.
Forward line. Ebert.
But always, his team came first.
Wanting to enjoy it, compete and hopefully win.
In the history of this great club, there's no bigger name. There's no greater player.
He was described as the perfect footballer build. He could kick accurately with either foot, handball with pinpoint accuracy, had the strength to dictate play and never let his teammates down. Ebert's work ethic was noticed by all who knew him.
Back to Ebert. Good football. Direct approach towards goal. A beautiful kick.
His skill. He could handle the ball beautifully and he could dispose of it beautifully.
He always does everything 100%, and if you're not doing it 100%, he'll certainly tell you about it.
The chance, Norsworthy's after him. Just couldn't get to him. Look at that, legs carrying him away. Snaps it up to the goal, and there's a magnificent goal to the Port Adelaide champion.
And a person that's contributing this sort of way means that he's a match winner in his own right.
Just before illness set in, Ebert sat down with his great mate Ebert for a rare public insight. His passion for the power during last year's final was obvious.
We had some exciting youngsters now. You don't want to stifle them. You want to let them play and show what they can do.
Russell Ebert played in an era of champions. Lindsay Head and Barry Robran were in the same league.
He's beaten for the mark by the brilliant Ebert. Ebert's been switched to Barry Robran in the hope he'll hold the champion in check.
Well, the greatest competition on a game of football I've ever seen was Russell and Barry. They were opposed that Russell was playing centre-half back and Barry was playing centre-half forward for North Adelaide at Prospect. And to me, that was the greatest game or the greatest competition I've ever seen in a game of football. Russell won the day.
Everyone agrees Ebert was the all-round player's player.
He'd have to be right up to the front. It's hard to pick a player to surpass him.
Or anybody who's played with him or against him would regard him as a very, very brilliant player. But because he was such a great player, you had to try and do something that little bit better against a player of his calibre.
Ebert again. Oh, look at him go.
In his 392 games for Port, he won best and fairest 6 times. He also won 4 Magareys, boasted 3 premierships, a Jack Oatey medal and represented the state 29 times. In his brilliant career, he also played 25 games for North Melbourne, briefly alongside Cornsey.
I saw just how much more he put into his football than the average footballer. I love the guy, there's no doubt about that.
It's taken us a bloody long time, but by Jesus, worth it.
Recently, he was rightly elevated to Sports Hall of Fame legend status.
Thanks so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Here's a much younger Bruce McAvaney.
Only time will tell if Ebert the coach will have as big an influence on the game as Ebert the player has had.
Carey's tap away, Ebert through. He can bounce his way into attack. Carries it towards centre-half forward.
Ebert coached Port for 5 seasons and later Woodville for 3. Premiership coach is about the only title which eluded him. His later charity and community work were also legendary, with an Order of Australia medal.
It's the person off the field, the person that would do anything for the community, not only for Port Adelaide but for the South Australian community.
Craig Ebert, here's a chance now for Russell Ebert.
More recently, Russell's son Brett and then nephew Brad carried on the Ebert name, number 7 tradition and the legend at Alberton.